Today is Friday, Parashat Tzav. It's the eve of Shabbat Hagadol. Shabbat Hagadol, which is this coming Shabbat that we start tonight, is the Shabbat that precedes Pesach. Of course, every Shabbat is important, but this Shabbat is called Shabbat Hagadol. Why Shabbat Hagadol? Because on this Shabbat, which happens to be the 10th of Nisan, just like when the Exodus took place, the Jewish people left Egypt early morning on Thursday. The 10th of Nisan was also on Shabbat. But Shabbat Hagadol is always the Shabbat that precedes Pesach, because on that Shabbat there was an incredible miracle. The Jewish people took the lamb that was a symbol of the god of the Egyptians, because they worshipped the lamb, the ram, and they took that, which was the deity of the Egyptians, and they tied it to their bedpost, planning to slaughter it as Korban Pesach. That was an incredible statement of faith, an incredible statement of courage and bitachon in Hashem. And it was an incredible overpowering of the faith in Hashem over the darkness and the avodah zarah, the idolatry of the Egyptians. And that made that day of the 10th of Nisan, which was Shabbat that year, a day that made it, that became a day of great statement of faith in Hashem. And that's why one of the reasons why we call it Shabbat Hagadol. And the miracle was that the Egyptians did not attack the Jewish people. They were actually subdued and in a way anxious to let the Jewish people go out of Egypt. They even, according to the Midrash, were telling Paro, what are you waiting for? Let them go already. They had enough of the Makot, they had enough of the Makot that took place, and they were very worried about Makat Bechorot that would take place. So the Jewish people in their home, with the lamb, were going to celebrate this idea of Pesach as they were going to go out of Egypt. But the Shabbat Hagadol is the great miracle that took place. So it's a Shabbat that also signifies faith in Hashem. The faith in Hashem despite any challenges, and after all, at the time of the slavery in Egypt, it's an incredible challenge, a time of darkness. Darkness in terms of the impurity of Egypt, darkness in terms of the enslavement. But that Shabbat that preceded the Exodus from Egypt was a Shabbat of faith and a Shabbat of expecting to go from darkness into light. There's another reason why this Shabbat is called Shabbat Hagadol. Because until the Exodus from Egypt, the Jewish nation was not formed yet. It started, Abraham was one of our forefathers, then you had Yitzchak, and there was Ishmael, then from Yitzchak came Esav, Yaakov. Yaakov came the 12 tribes, but they were a family of 12 tribes. They went down to Egypt as 70 souls, but yet not yet as a nation. It was more like a family. And then they went through the years with Yosef, that were beautiful years, and then the difficult years of enslavement. Not yet a nation. When do we see the birth of a nation? It's at the Exodus from Egypt. At the Exodus from Egypt, the Jewish people turn into a people, into a nation. And then, at that moment, when they become a nation, then Shabbat gained an important status, because Shabbat is paired with the Jewish people. The Jewish people got this great gift of Shabbat as a nation. We are the ones that observe the Shabbat in terms of all that it deserves, as a holy day, as a day of Kedusha. Kadesh, the Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadesho, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat. This is given as a gift to the Jewish nation. So the Shabbat that began from the time of the creation of the world, that Hashem rested on the seventh day, fulfilled its kind of its meaningful significance through Am Yisrael observing the Shabbat. When the Jewish people became a nation, that happened at the Exodus of Egypt, from Egypt, and that Shabbat Hagadol, which is the Shabbat that is connected to the Exodus of Egypt, as the Jewish people tied the lamb to their bedpost, and now they're becoming a nation. Shabbat gained great importance, and they became now Shabbat Hagadol, because now that Shabbat has more meaning than it had before. The Jewish people are going to become a nation that will observe the Shabbat, and that has great meaning. And therefore, this Shabbat, as we get ready for this Shabbat Hagadol that will take place tonight and tomorrow, let us also, all of us, think how we can make this Shabbat really deserve the greatness that is associated with what Shabbat is. Because the Jewish people and Shabbat go very well together. And Shabbat is a great source of blessings. So this Shabbat Hagadol will make it very special. The haftarah of this Shabbat Hagadol is Ve'arva Lashem Inchat Yehuda V'Yerushalayim, and it ends up with also the word Gadol. Towards the end of the haftarah, it speaks about Yom HaGadol Ve'Hanora, the great day, and referring to the day of Mashiach. May we merit Be'ezat Hashem that Mashiach should come soon. V'mera b'yameinu amen. May the Bet HaMikdash be rebuilt. And even though these days we are all over the world, people are staying at home safe and God willing healthy. May all these people that need a healing, may they have refuah shelema. And as we're staying in their home, let's really give the home the importance that it deserves, especially on Shabbat. People to stay home, people to observe Shabbat and eat and all that it has to offer. Let's make sure that all the electronic devices are not bothering us on Shabbat. Let's make sure that the Shabbat table has singing, words of Torah, learning, and the prayer at home is okay too. You know, you can concentrate on the words and take your time and delve into the parasha and its commentaries and prepare for Pesach by reviewing the Haggadah and reviewing some of the aspects that have to do with the Seder of Pesach. So may you have a Shabbat Hagadol Shalom. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.